Hello, everyone. Welcome, and thank you for joining the third virtual webinar series. Thank you for taking your time to join to the third virtual monthly webinar series. So today we'll be talking about the vRealize suite on VMware Cloud Foundation, VCF. So today, the agenda is that, right? So we'll be going more deeper for the vRealize suite on the VCF. So we'll talk about the architecture as well as the deployment deep dive, how we can go and then have the design and the deployment for a vRealize suite of products on the VCF. So this is the agenda for today. So next 60 minutes, we are going to talk about the architecture overview. Then also we'll go and then discuss in details, right? So how to prepare before going to start the deployment of the vRealize suite of products on the VCF. Deployment process, how can we plan and how can we start it? We'll talk in details. Then also I have a demo, right? So for a deployment of the few products, because as you know, right, so the vRealize suite of products has multiple products within this suite. So not be able to complete all, but I'll try to demo a few of them. And at the end, right, so we'll also try to get a question and answer. If you have, during the discussion, just you can note down or you can enter your questions into the Q&A section. My name is Roshan Jha. I'm the PSO consultant based in Singapore, covering Southeast Asia and Korea. This is my LinkedIn profile. If you want to connect, feel free to go and connect with me. I'm 4 times VMware vExpert, having 15 plus years of experience, especially started from the operations now, almost 7 years in consulting architecture. This is my blog. So I do try to write the blogs whenever I get time. So please feel free to follow the blogs, right? So if you want to follow or especially related to the VCF, currently, I'm trying to write blogs on Tanju. So if you are more, if you're keen to know more about Tanju, please feel free to visit my blog. I'm a specialist mainly in the SDDC stack. So SDDC, as you know, right? So VMware has very broad portfolio. So I'm covering whole software-defined data center stack based on the VVD or VCF. Also, I'm a specialist with the operations, right? So helping customer to have the robust operations for the data center, and also support the service provider, which we say the VMware Cloud, a platform provider, right? So if you need to know more about that VCPP partner or service provider, just go and Google the VCPP cloud, and then you'll be able to know, right? So what VMware partners offer for their end customers. So let's get started, right? So we will now go a little deeper on the VCF architecture first, and then we'll go the deployment process, right? So what are the things we go and then talk to customer when we start engagement with the customer. Let's begin with discussing the individual products that are included in the vRealize suite with the VCF. As you can see on your top of your screen, right? So vRealize suite LCM, which we say Lifecycle Manager. So basically, Lifecycle Manager is used to automate the deployment, upgrade, and then patching of the VMware vRealize products in this design, right? So when we say the VCF helps the customer to have the agile way to deploying the complete software-defined data center, and also help to have the automated deployment of the vRealize suite of products on top of your infrastructure, right? So what is the a main brain behind, right? So who is providing all those automation for the deployment of all those components? And that is the Lifecycle Manager. Right. So this is the main brain or automation engine behind deployment of the vRealize suite on the VCF or even outside of VCF. Right. Second product, what you can see on the screen, right? So Workspace ONE Access, right? So earlier it was branded as a VIDM, which we say a VMware Identity Manager. So identity and access management, right? So basically it provides the authentication and authorization, right? For the complete software-defined data center. It function to control your access to the complete software-defined data center, right? So we'll talk more in details, right? So when we'll go further. Then our next product, what you can see on the screen, the vRealize Operations Manager. I'll say the operation, as you know, right? So when we talk about the software-defined data center, right? So monitoring is one of the critical aspects of any data center, whether you are running the traditional data center or you're running the software-defined data center. So this is a product from the VMware. So where we provide the robust and then unified operations across the physical, virtual, and then cloud environment, right? If a customer has the hybrid infrastructure, means that they have their own premises, running their data center on premises, they are running on the service provider, or they're running in the public cloud. And if they want to have the unified monitoring tools which can talk to all the endpoints, whether the on premises, service provider, which is a VMware based service provider, or any public cloud, whatever you see in the market, whether AWS, GCP, or Azure, or Alibaba, whatever, right? So this tool is capable of integrating with all the a private cloud and public cloud, and then you can integrate to have the unified monitoring for your data center, right? So we will, I'll not go in details on that, but yeah, I'll say, right? So if you want to maybe in a future, webinar, right? So I'll try to get individual one, and then we'll deep dive more on that, right? So how can we use those products? What is the use case, right? So it's solving for the customers, right? So we'll try to cover in the future. But today I'll not go in deeper because we have only 60 minutes to cover all those, respective of the VCF, right? Design and architecture, right? So we'll try to cover it. The next is you can see the Log Insight. So Log Insight basically, provides the real-time log management and log analysis with machine learning based intelligent for your logs, right? So there are multiple use cases that the Log Insight can offer to the customer. Whether you want to have the machine learning a base log analysis, or you want to have the centralized log warehouse where for the security perspective, right? So you need to have the unified log management server where you can send all the logs and then you can retain for the longer period of time, right? So that can be provided by the Log Insight server. And then second last, what we can see on the screen, the vRealize automation, right? So again, right, so why public cloud, right? So is more famous, or the benefit is to provide to the customer. First is that, right, so you don't have to manage the infrastructure. And then second aspect of that is that, right, so it's provide the complete automation, end-to-end automation for the customer, right? So you don't have to maintain the infrastructure, first of all. And then second portion is that, right, so you don't have to do any manual work. You just go and then say that, hey, I want to deploy 100 VMs, right? So it provides you a self-service portal, so where you log in and then you just give all those details, right? So what do you want to have, right? And then once you click submit, it goes in backend and kicking the multiple workflows when what we say, automation of workflows to start all those work and finish without any user intervention, right? So this is where we say, automation. Same way the VMware has the product called VRA, we say vRealize automation, right? So vRealize automation streamlines the multi-cloud infrastructure and then application delivery, right? So it enhances your, visibility and cross-functional collaboration between the, as I said, right? So maybe you have only the VMware-based software-defined data center. So you want to provision the VMs in automated way on the public private cloud. And also, if you have hybrid cloud model, your organization is following, then you can also integrate the VRA with your public cloud, and then you can use this one tool to provision the workload, whether in the on premises or you want to provision in the public cloud. So it can be unified, again, the self-service portal for the customer, and then you can go and then deploy your day one perspective. Second use case can be, right, so automation. We say release automation, right? So if tomorrow you want to have upgrade all those, right, so how can we go and then provide those as well, so that can be handled through the VRA. And last but not the least, the vRealize network insight. In short, we say VRNI, right? So as you know that we discussed, right, about the VROps, right? So VROps is mainly monitoring tools for the capacity perspective, and then operations capacity, and then troubleshooting perspective, or performance monitoring perspective is the VROps. But in a data, even when we say the data center, right, so we have hundreds of different kinds of hardware network equipments. We have switches, routers, firewalls, right? So if you want to monitor the network centric devices, you need to have any specialized tools which can give you more insight for the network centric hardwares, right? So then this is the specialized in the network monitoring, right? So the VRNI can provide the complete network visibility and then analysis to accelerate your micro segmentation security. Second, I think one of the best use case also I have seen the customer is buying this tool is to implement the security model, right? Because just take for example, right? So if you have the multi-tier application, and today we are not following the zero trust or the micro segmentation, what we say, right, within your data center, right? So how do you want to filter the traffic between all those tiers within the data center, or east-west traffic within the data center, right? So that can be done with the help of NSX, right? So NSX provide micro segmentation, but to plan those configuration of the communication, right? So tier 1 talks to tier 2, tier talks to tier 3, right? Which are the protocol, which are the ports they communicate with, right? So how can we go and then have more details, right? So that, right, so we can go and then implement it. So this is the tools will be the very beneficial if you have any plan to implement the micro segmentation security within your data center, right? So you can create all those application grouping, then run, initially it will be completely open. So tier 1 can talk to tier 2, tier 2 can go to tier 3, and then users from outside can talk to everything, right? So then you can let it run for a few days, and then see, right? So what it will does, it will go and then have the complete flows. It will capture all those flows, and then you can go and then analyze those flows, and then see which ports from tier 1 to talking to tier 2, and then which ports from tier 2 to tier 3, right? So that way you can give it can give you the clear picture which are the protocol or which are the ports they need to talk to regards to your application to be functional, right? So that can be very useful if you want to implement it. And then also the end-to-end flows, right? For example, virtual to physical to firewall, right? So which blocks is blocking, for example, where exactly is the issue, right? So that can give you the very detailed details that will be easier for the operations team to troubleshoot it related to the network troubleshooting. So these are the products comes under the vRealize suite of product, right? Let's move on. Today, right, so today I'm not going to discuss more about the VCF architecture. I'm only focusing on the vRealize architecture, in regards with the VCF, right? So if you in my previous series of webinar, and also I presented something in the VMUG daily VMUG. So you can go and then have, if you want to know more about the VCF architecture, how we, what is the VCF, what are the architecture is supported, right? So how we can go and then use the VCF to have the agile way of deployment of the software-defined data center. So please feel free to watch my previous videos, so where we have discussed more about the VCF architecture. Also, if in Delhi VMware, right? So I focus was only on the one AZ, but my second my first webinar, I tried to cover the multi availability zone, right, within the VCF architecture, right? So if a customer wants to have the multi AZ design within the VCF, so what are the things they have to take care, right? So this is what I discussed within my first webinar. So you can go and then take a look on those video if you want to know more about the VCF perspective. But today we are just limiting our discussion only on the vRealize suite on the VCF perspective. So this is completely right. So as you can see on the screen, so when you go and then deploy it, right? So this is the complete logical architecture, right, for the vRealize suite components after it is fully installed on the VCF, right? So as I said, right, so I already discussed it. So before adding the vRealize suite, right, so we need to have the VCF management domain deployment, which the cloud builder helps you to automate it. And then with the management domain bring up, it's bring up the complete infrastructure, which includes your ESXi, vCenter server, vSAN, NSX, as well as the SDDC manager. So SDDC manager basically is the main brain behind the VCF, which provides the complete automation for the VCF, right? So the VCF will bring up when you deploy the management domain. Once also along with the a management domain bring up, so when you go and then choose to have the AVN network, which we say application virtual network, right? So application virtual network means that it is going to deploy two separate logical switch NSX construct on which all those vRealize suite of products or those components will be connecting and running. So right, so they can talk to each other, or your operations, or all the people can access it, right? So I'll talk about all those in details. As you can see, right, so this design basically uses a single region for a single region design here. So, and then within the region, we have two segments. One is called the region specific, and second is called the cross region. So basically, when we say the cross region, right, so the only reason to have the cross region, we recommend to customer to have two separate logical switch. Reason is that for the future perspective, right, if you want to have the DR or the another region to be up and running, right, where you want to protect all these components to be protect for the business continuity, right? So you need to have a second site. So this network can be then extended to the other region or other sites, so that, right, so when you fail over all these components, which is connected to the cross region logical switch, can fail over to the other side without changing the IP addresses. So they can retain the same IP addresses. That's the only reason that we recommend to have two reason, right? So if a customer say we don't have any use case to have a business continuity, right? So in that case, maybe it won't add more value. But for the future perspective, we don't know. So based on the complete architecture, complete multi-site architecture, we recommend to have the design is to have two separate logical switches, region specific and then cross region specific. So where there are a few components which will be connecting to the region specific. Why so? Because we don't have to protect those virtual machine or those components, right, for the disaster perspective, because these component only provide service to the local sites, right? So if my local site is down and if these VMs are down, it won't impact anything for my operations or for my business. But because these components, what you can see here, it can provide services for multiple data centers, right? And if this data center is down and these VMs are down, it means it can impact your businesses. It can impact the service for other sites, right? That's why we have to have these guys to be protected for the business continuity, for disaster recovery. So if this site goes down, then we can fail over these VMs to the other sites, bring it up, and then we can start using it for the other sites, whatever we have available. right? So we'll talk more about more on that. Also, you can see right at the right side here, the external dependencies, right? So those are the shared services that you need to have before we go and then deploy it, right? DNS, LDAP, certificate authority is not compulsory, but again, if you practice the security, right? So we recommend to have the signed CA so that it can provide you the a secured communication between the client to server, right? So this is where we need to have the CA, and also the upstream router, so that right. So this data center can talk to the outside world, or people from outside can access your application running with this, within this data center, right? Apart from that, also the NTP is one of the critical component within the VCF, right? So we need to have the NTP, and then NTP must be also reachable from all those components: VRA, VROps, a workspace one, lifecycle manager, right? So all those components must talk to your NTP server, right? If they when you deploy these components, and if they cannot talk to the NTP server, right? So maybe your deployment will fail, right? So make sure that, right? So when we discuss with the customer, right? So we always make sure that, right? So NTP is reachable from all of the vRealize components, whatever we have configured on the SDDC manager, on ESXi, or vCenter or NSX. Okay. Yeah. So next we'll go and then deep dive deeper on the planning and then preparation phase, right? So where as you can see on your screen, right? So when we go to the customer, right? So and when we run the workshop, and then at that time, right? So we'll go and then discuss all those upfront, right? So what is the design? What is the requirement from the customer? And based on their requirement, right? So we try to give the solution, right? So this is the architecture will be best suited for you. But when we talk about the VCF, right? So VCF have their predefined architecture, right? So we cannot deviate much from that. But yes, we can little bit, we can go and then and sizing perspective, we can have those leverage, right? So we can go and then plan the sizing, right? So whether single node deployment, or multi nodes, or have the standalone design or deployment, or we have to have extended design, right? So that can be discussed during the design phase. Once we have done, then we go and then have the planning and preparation sheet, right? So normally a VMware give a complete extensive sheet, so where we ask customer to fill in all the required details, right? So that, right? So before starting the deployment, all the prerequisites have been captured within the Excel sheet. Right? So that when we start, we don't have to depend on the customer, so that we can go and then use those details to use for the deployment. So this is the first place, right? So where you can see we have number 1 to number 10. So that is the end-to-end complete, right? So starting from the VCF deployment, then after VCF, right? So we need to have the to deploy first the lifecycle manager, which is the first component, right? So if you want to add on your vRealize suite of products on the VCF, so this is the first product we have to add on. And once we have added the lifecycle manager, in the next from the 4 point onwards, right? So we have to have the workspace one deployed, then only we'll be able to deploy number 5, 6, and 7, which is the VROps, login site, and VRA. As of today, just to let you know that, right? So as of today, the VRNI is not part of the lifecycle manager. That will still again the same process, the manual custom design and deploy. So that will not be, but maybe in the future, right? So VRNI will be also onboarded through the lifecycle manager. Once we have done the planning and preparation, then we deployed the workspace one, and then we deploy the lifecycle manager, and then based on our requirement from the customer, we add on the VROps login site in VRA, right? So these are the, when we say the automated deployment, right? So these are the vanilla deployment, right? So it will deploy all those based on the architecture. It will does all the integration, right? And then we hand over to the operations team, where operations team go and then start building their operations, right? So how they want to monitor it. For example, VROps, right? So operations is not a one-day work, right? It's continuous a process that you have to build every day. You have to fine tune every day based on your requirement. How do you want to monitor it, right? So we can we are providing a baseline, a place. From here we are starting, and then every day you have to fine tune that how you want to monitor it. So that you want to have the multiple reports. My boss, right? So my CEO, CFO, they want to have some different kind of reports from for the infrastructure perspective, right? From the capacity perspective, that if you see, right? So 99% we have so many out of box reports that will be useful for the operations. But maybe if you need something which is the not out of box, then you can go and then configure reports based on your requirement, and then use that. Alerting also, right? So what you want to alert it, right? So you want to monitor your apart from the software defined data center, you want to monitor your Cisco switches, HP hardware, or Dell servers, right? So those can be integrated with the VROps, and then you can go and then configure the alerts for all those, right? So which alerts do you want if something happens, right? So that the product will monitor and then generate alerts for you, so that you can go and take a look and then fix the issue. And also for the VRA perspective, right? So which are the operating system, how you want to provision your VMs. You want to have the one-to-one click automation, or you want to have a multi-tier deployment of your applications, right? So those blueprints can be then go and then whether your operations or whoever, right? So is doing that, they can start doing those, and then once they have done it, then it can move to the completely for the end user, so to use those products. Right. So we will walk through all these in upcoming slides. This is what I discussed here in my previous, right? So when we bring up the management domain, right? So management domain, what it does, it's bring up the complete infrastructure. So when we say the infrastructure, so all, right? So virtualization for the vSphere perspective, which provide the compute virtualization. Then we have the storage virtualization, which is the vSAN, and also for the network virtualization, which is the NSX. So all three can be automated, deployed through the during the management domain bring up, right? That's what you can see here. So once you build your management domain or bring up the management domain, your all ESXi is ready. All those required networks has been configured for you. Then the vCenter server for management is ready. NSX managers, right? So 3 NSX managers will be configured in a clusters, and also the SDDC manager, which I said, right? So this is the main brain behind the VCF automation, right? So all the automation, whether day one perspective or day two perspective, can be handled from the SDDC manager, right? So those components will be deployed during the management bring up. And also along with these components, right? So it's also configure the complete NSX design, right? For example, creating, right? So if you want to have those logical switches network construct, we need to have the edges, right? We need to have the tier 1, which provides the east-west routing. Then we need to have the tier 0, which my tier 1 will talk to tier 0, and then tier will talk tier 0, which is provide the north-south routing, right? And then tier 0 will talk to the physical routers, right? So your upstream routers, so that it can establish the peering between the physical and virtual, so that I can talk to outside and outside can talk to my inside, right? All those will be auto-deployed. Just you have to provide all those details within the bring up sheet. And then once you say start, it will go and then automatically based on the provided details, it will done everything. I'll talk in details, right? So later, so why the log inside the load balancer we need it, right? So load balancer we need for the components, right? So whenever we have the design, for example, VROps, right? So here, if you are an enterprise customer, right? And then based on your sizing, maybe VMware recommend to have the multi-node clusters. So always when we have the extended design, right, or multi-node design, then always it's best practice or architecture or design is that, right? So you need to place the load balancer in front, so that the end user will talk to the load balancer, which has the virtual IP running, and then this VIP will redirect all the requests on multiple backend servers, right? So we are going to consume the load balancer on the from the NSX. So those all load balancer, wherever we need for the management perspective, for VRA, for VROps, for VRA, for workspace one, right? So currently we need to have 3 load balancer, and all those 3 load balancer will be running on the tier 1 here. That's what you can see, the load balancer here. And then it will also deploy the 2 logical switches with 2 separate networks, and then it will configure the routing between these 2 so that whichever products you are connecting to, whether the regional specific logical segments or the cross region, they can talk each other, right? For example, if you can see here, because my VROps here, workspace one, which is providing only the authentication and authorization for the local specific components. So mainly this workspace one, which is connecting to the region specific logical switch, will be providing the role-based access control for the NSXT. And what the other set of workspace one you can see here in the cross region, that will be provided the role-based access control for the rest of the products. For example, VROps, your lifecycle manager, for VRA, all those will be connecting to this one. The always, question comes from the customer, right? So why we need to have the multiple set of workspace one? Why can't we use the single one, right? As I explained, earlier, that why we need to have the cross region. So it means that I want to protect these components for my disaster recovery, for business continuity, right? So that I can fail over these VMs to the other sites when this site fails, right? So if we use the one set of a workspace one, right? And then it also provide the role-based access control for your NSXT, which is a local for this site, right? We don't have to protect it for failover because the other sites will have the local NSX components, right? So this guy, when it failovers to the other site, it has the load balancer running, right? Because it has multiple nodes design, and in front it has load balancer. And load balancer is not, the multi-site component. It can be only the local, right? So this is not the global load balancer, which can, cater for the multi sites or multi, reason, right? So that's the reason architecture here asks to have the individual 2 set of workspace one. One is the for region specific, which will be only talking to the NSXT. So in that case, if this site goes down, we don't have to protect the single node workspace one, because that is only providing the service to the local sites. But the other, what you can see in the cross region, those will be failover to the other sites, so that we can again leverage the same component for the multi-sites deployment, multi-sites design. So once we have the management, management being up done, and all these has been up and running now, then we can go and start deploying the vRealize suite of components, right? So let's go more in deeper. So when we during the planning and the preparation phase, so we provide this Excel sheet that can be downloaded from the VMware sites, where it has multiple tabs where it asks for the multiple questions and customer has to fill in. For example, NTP, DNS, AD, or SFTP server, SMTP server, certificate authority, right? So those, whatever we have intend to deploy it, right? So those can be fill in over here. What is the name? We need to configure. What is the IP address is going to have? All those can be fill in within this planning and preparation workbook, right? Also, all the service accounts, right? So which service account we want to, when we will integrate from the SDDC manager to vCenter server, right? So what is the service account I'm going to use it, right? So all those can be pre-discussed with the customer and then added over here as a prerequisite, so that when we go and then start deployment, then we don't have to go and then keep asking to the customer, hey, what is the service name we want to use it, right? So all those upfront we are asking, and then they can fill in every details. So this is a very extensive sheet where a customer can provide all the details, and it will be one shop and a stop for you to refer when you start deployment of the vRealize suite of components. So this is the basically architecture, right, for authentication security perspective, right? So user, right, so whether you want, so as you know, right, so whenever we deploy the products, any VMware products, so all the VMware products has a local user ID, right? So that can be, for example, NSX has their local administrator. But for example, if you have the multi, wide operations team where we have multiple people supporting the one product, do you want to use the local account? Then it is very difficult to distinguish, right? So who is doing what, right? Because everyone using the same user ID, right? And then everyone, if they're modifying or configuring something, and that can maybe misconfigured, right? So how we go and distinguish it, right? So the who has done what, right? So this is where we always need to have role-based access control. It means that we can integrate the component with the Active Directory or LDAP, whatever the company is following, and then they can follow the same security model what they have been using for the few years within the organization, right? So this is what you can see on the screen here. So so based on the VCF, what we do have here now, we have workspace one, which provide the single sign-on, right? So all the components, the user will always talk to the workspace one. And then workspace one has been integrated either with the LDAP or AD, whatever you have within the organization, whatever the security policy or identity management you are using it, right? So we can go and integrate, and then we can import then all the required users and then assign permission on the individual product, so that, right, so user can use their same ID, whether they are talking to the NSX, they are talking to the login side, VROps, VRA, whatever, right? So this guy can provide you the low single sign-on, centralized role-based access control, right? So this is where we can go and then define it. So once we have firm with our design, right? So we have firm with our design that these are the products we are going to deploy. These are by sizing of my deployment, right? So single node, multi nodes, right? We discuss and then we finalize it. Once we have finalized it, then we send the planning and preparation sheet where the customer fill in all the required details, right? So naming convention, IP addresses, all those details. Once we are firm with that, then we start deployment of the VCF component, right? So as I said, right? So the SDDC manager is the unified, again, unified access, a unified platform, right? So all the users, administrator will always log into the SDDC manager. And SDDC manager will, from there, you can initiate the deployment of whatever you are doing it for day one perspective. And then once you have done with the day one, the day two perspective, how to apply patches, upgrade all those individual products, all will be done from the SDDC manager, right? So you have to log into SDDC manager, and SDDC manager will talk to the lifecycle manager to instruct for deployment or upgrade of the VROps, login site, VRA, and all those products, right? So once we have done with the number one, then we go with the number two stage, right? So where we go and then first deploy the region specific. Again, the region is a region specific. A workspace one still is the manual way. It's not comes from through the lifecycle manager. So it still is manual way. So it means you have to manually download this workspace one from the VMware website, and then you can connect to the vCenter server and then deploy this OV as a virtual machine, and then you can integrate it, right? So you can refer how to manually deploy it, right? So I'll not focus more on that. Then the next phase will be to go and then deploy. Once we have the SDDC manager up and running, and then you want to now add on your vRealize suite of products here now, then first component what we deploy is the lifecycle manager. So if I compare, right, so the latest version of the VCF, which is the 4.1, and then previous version, right? So in a previous version until 4.0, we had to manually download the lifecycle manager from the VMware website, and then manually deploy the lifecycle manager in the vCenter server. And then it was integrating with the SDDC manager, right? So still there was a manual work, but from the VCF 4.1 and now, so the lifecycle manager is well maintained and then aware by the SDDC manager. So SDDC manager is well aware of your lifecycle manager, right? So deployment of the lifecycle manager now also can be initiated from the SDDC manager. We have demo, right? So we'll show there how to we do it, right? But this is where, right? So we don't have to manually now download the lifecycle manager and then deploy the separately. How can we do it? So we connect to the SDDC manager, and then we can go there, download the lifecycle manager bundle from SDDC manager if you have the internet access from the SDDC manager. If you don't have, then still we can have the offline download of all those packs, and then we can transfer to the SDDC manager, and then we can use the same way, right? But if you have the SDDC manager internet connection from the SDDC manager, then we can directly download from the VMware website all those components, right? So lifecycle manager, VROps, VRA, all the components can be downloaded through the SDDC manager. That's what I said, right? So SDDC manager is the single unified console for the complete administration. Day one, day two, both perspective. Okay. So now, then we'll move, and then I said, right. So once we have done with the management domain bring up done, then we'll go and then deploy the reason specific workspace one, which will be providing the role-based access control only for the NSXT component, right? So if customer is saying, no, I'm okay with the local authentication of the NSXT, then maybe, we don't have to deploy it, right? But if the customer says, yes, we have to have the role-based access control where I want to leverage my AD or LDAP accounts for my administrator to log into the NSX, then we have to deploy this region-specific workspace one, and then integrate this workspace one with your LDAP or AD, and then import the AD users, assign the permission. That is the first component we deployed. Then once we have done it, then the main vRealize perspective, right? So main will be go and then deploy the lifecycle manager, right? So this is the first component. I'll say comes automation engine, right? So now we are adding the automation engine for vRealize suite. So this guy will be responsible for automating the deployment of all the components in the vRealize suite for day one and day two both, right? So we can connect to my SDDC manager, we can download the lifecycle manager bundle, and then we can go and then deploy it from there. So it means that my SDDC manager is well aware about the lifecycle manager. Okay, and then once we have deployed it, then it will from there we can connect, and then we can start deployment of the rest of the products, right? So whether the workspace one, VROps, login site, or VRA, and then VRNI, right? So that can be done. So first component what we deploy is the lifecycle manager. Now again, once we have deployed the lifecycle manager, then we need to have, as you can see here, so this is what I was discussing. So my SDDC manager, through SDDC manager, I can deploy my lifecycle manager. And then lifecycle, as soon as you deployed it, it will report back to the SDDC manager that, hey, it has been deployed now. So SDDC manager is well aware. So whatever configuration, whatever the product you are adding within the software defined data center, right? So through the lifecycle manager, so SDDC manager is well aware that this product has been added, whether you are adding the workspace one, you are adding the VROps, login site, or VRA. All those, so SDDC managers, all those products will be added to the database of the SDDC manager, right? And this is where you can use the same again component, SDDC manager or lifecycle manager, to manage all those components for the day two perspective, right? So this is what the complete cycle provided by the, so again, I said, right, so your main UI still is the SDDC manager, and from SDDC manager, you connect to the lifecycle manager, and from lifecycle manager, you can instruct which component you want to manage it. You want to manage the workspace one, VROps, login site, or VRA, okay? So this is, if you see here, right, so we were discussing that, right? So when we have the load balancer, right? So this is very simple to say that, right? So I'm going to deploy the load balancer. But when you deploy the load balancer, it has multiple tasks to configure, right? So end-to-end configuration of the load balancer, right? So how it can be done? So all the configuration, deployment, and then configuration of the load balancer will be done by the SDDC manager. You don't have to manually do anything. What we have to do, we have to just provide the details of the load balancer, the VIP, FQDN, right? That's it. Rest all those configuration, creation of the virtual servers, pools, profiles, and monitor profile, which protocol you want to monitor, all will be done automated through the SDDC manager. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. So as that's why I'm saying is provide the complete automated, right? So way to deploy the vRealize suite of products, the product as well as the, if you need to have the LB, so LB will be also deployed automatically, right? Instruction will go from the SDDC manager to the NSXT, and NSXT will go and then configure everything for the SDDC manager. Right. So once we have added the lifecycle manager, the next component that we need to add is compulsory now, right? So if you deploy it, you can't deploy the other products until you deploy the workspace one, right? Because based on the VVD or VCF architecture, right? So all those VROps, VRA, and vRealize, right, will be integrated with the workspace one to provide the role-based access control. Right, so this is what you can see. The next, once you have deployed the lifecycle manager, we need to have the deploy the workspace one, and workspace one will be the 3 node, because it's covering not only for the small architecture, it's complete enterprise level architecture, where I'm providing the multi-node extended distributed design, where multi-nodes are there. If even one node fail, still the other nodes are there to provide the service to the customers. Right, and then so because we have the multiple nodes workspace one design here, so we need to have the load balancer. So load balancer, I said, right, so it will be automatically created on the tier 1. And then also once it's done, then then we can go and then integrate this workspace one to your either with your AD or LDAP, and then use the this same product SSO, right, for your role-based access control for rest of the products. Okay, so once we have done, then we can go and then deploy the VROps. It's so only the limited sequence wise, right? So if you see here, the first you have to deploy the lifecycle manager, and second you have to deploy the workspace one access. Once we have deployed these two, after that there's no sequence. You can deploy any product in any sequence, whether you want to deploy first VROps or you want to only deploy the VROps, right? You maybe you don't need a login site, or you don't need a VRA, right? Or maybe you only need a VRA. You don't need a VROps. Maybe you have some other monitoring tools within your already in the data center, which you want to leverage also for this software defined data center, right? So there's no sequence for VROps, vRealize, and or this one. But why we if you have all three to deploy, then always recommendation to have first go and then deploy the VROps, because when we deploy through the lifecycle manager, not only deploys, it's also integrate, right? It's also integrate. For example, VROps will be integrated automatically with the my vCenter server to get the data, to connect with the vCenter and then collect all the data, so that it can start monitoring for the ESXi, VMs, all those vSANs. Then it will integrate with the NSXT to get the data from the NSXT managers, so that I can monitor and then provide the reportings or performance capacity planning or any issues, right? So customer can use it, right? So those will be automated integration, right? So this is based on the architecture, right? So maybe a number of nodes can be different in your design or deployment based on the how big is your infrastructure you are going to monitor, right? But here what we say that, right, so based on this architecture, customer decided to have the 3 node VROps. They want to have the VROps cluster in the high availability mode, where the if one node fails, another node will take over as the master node, and then still they have the continuous monitoring for their data center. To just offload the load from the cluster, analytics clusters, right? So we recommend to have the pair of the VROps remote collector. So remote collector will only will be deploying in the region specific, and then will be connecting the logs from all those components what we discussed, right? vCenter server, ESXi, NSXT, vSAN, all those, right? So we'll be the collection will be will be done by the collector, and then collector will forward all those metrics to the VROps, and then VROps will go and then analyze all those and then perform for the reporting perspective, right? So that's why you can see here. But maybe if you are very small, infrastructure, maybe you don't want to have them so many nodes, then still you can have them maybe 3 nodes, and also those 3 nodes will be responsible to collecting all the data from all the endpoints. That can be a little bit changed within the design based on how big is your infrastructure. Okay, as you can see here, we have 3 nodes, so we need to have the load balancer, right? So load balancer will be again when you go and then choose to deploy it, it will ask you what is the IP address of the load balancer. So just you have to give the IP address as well as the FQDN of the VIP, and rest the configuration of the deployment and configuration of the load balancer will be automatically done by the SDDC manager. That's completely automated way. Then we can go and add the login side, again, multi-node. So multi-node, we need a load balancer, but a login side now doesn't support external load balancer. The reason is that VMware, provide the integrated load balancer within the product, right? So there is the inbuilt load balancer running on any of the nodes that can be leveraged for the login side. So now login side doesn't support the external load balancer. You have to use the integrated. That's why you can see, right? So there's no required of the external load balancer, but product has load balancer called integrated load balancer, which we can leverage to have in case of multi-node design and deployment. And last but not the least, right? So we can go and then have the VRA. Again, VRA, it can be single node, multi-nodes, but here, because we are talking on the complete architecture, so customer decided to have the 3 nodes VRA node deployment, right? So we have 3 nodes, and whenever we say multi-node design, then we need to have the load balancer, right? So again, all these load balancer will be auto-configured through the SDDC manager, right? Also, it gives you also option, right? So during the deployment of all these products, if you want, you can also apply the certificates. So you can provide all those required certificate details, and then so that when you deployed, it can go and then configure the certificate for you as well. Either you can do later, or you can configure or replace the certificate, self-signed certificate, with the custom certificate when you deploy during the deployment of any of the components. It can be done. It's up to the customer how they want to do it, during the deployment or the later. That's both are option available. And then so once we have done it, I said, so this is the end architecture for the customer. So now we have done the management domain bring up, which is the VCF management domain bring up. Then on top of the management domain, we have added all required components of the vRealize suites, right? So customer can start using them for multiple use purposes, right? They have deployed those components. So now they can start using those components for those use cases, right? So which we have designed and deployed it. Okay, so now we can hand over to the operations, or whoever is responsible to have the more configuration for VROps, or configuring the blueprints, blueprints, or in VRA, right? So so that can be go, and then they can start configuring it so that the customer can connect as a self-signed portal, and then they can provide the details, right? So what I want to deploy it, right? And then once they submit, it will go and then it provide the end-to-end customization, end-to-end automation for the end user perspective to deploy their applications, right? But someone has to pre-configure all those, right? So it's not out of box. So then we can start building those based on the requirement, building those workflows, building, configuring all those configuration, what customer wants to leverage it. Yeah. So with this, we'll jump on demo. So I'll go and then have a demo. Yeah. So let me minimize this. So first, in demo, right? So we'll go and then have the first deployment of the lifecycle manager, right? As I said, right? So once you deploy the management domain, so you can see I'm connecting to this SDDC manager. And when you connect to the SDDC manager, you can see the bundle management, right? So bundle management is that, right? So here you can download all the VMware products if you have the direct internet connection from the SDDC manager. If not, then we have to use the offline transfer of the logs uh, of all the softwares, right? So what we do, so as soon as we deploy the SDDC manager, we comes here, and then we configure here the VMware accounts. So we provide the user ID and password of the customer, which has permission to download all the components, right? So first step will be the configure this one, and once it's done, then we can go and then, so it will show all the products, right? So which you want to download, you just click on download and it will be downloaded. So now I'm clicking here. So already I have downloaded here. So you can see I have the lifecycle manager, I have the login site, I have the VROps, I have workspace one. So based on the VCF 4.1, all those components, BOM, right? VCF BOM, all those version has been already downloaded. So it means so I'm ready to start deployment of those products. So now let's go. Okay, so yeah, so as you can see here, now I'm going to vRealize suits. As you can see, there's no products deployed here. The first component that we need to deploy is the lifecycle manager, right? And then once we have the lifecycle manager deployed, then second step is to deploy the workspace one access. And then only you can start deployment of the individual vRealize suite of products on the cloud foundation, right? So whether you want to deploy VROps, login site, and automation, right? And then once we have done it, then because so automatically, right? So it will only integrate with the management domain, VCF management domain. And if you have the multiple workload domains, then we can go and then integrate the multiple workload domains to the VROps, login site, and then VRA, right? So let's start with the deployment of the lifecycle manager first. So click on deploy. And then, so here, as you can see here, so we have to pre-configure like name, DNS and IP addresses, right? So make sure that DNS entry has been configured. Make sure that, right, so as we discussed, right, so these the lifecycle manager will connect to the cross-region segments, right? So make sure that the routing from the DNS to the cross-region is up and running. The routing from your NTP to the cross-region as logical segment is working, right? So this is what we have to prerequisite. This is the prerequisite, right? So we have to done it, right? So make sure that everything is in place. And then we also make sure that, right, so the installation package has been downloaded, right? Then only we'll be able to complete it. If not, as we first we check that, right? So do we have all those package downloaded? We saw in the history. Yes, we have already done it. So this is what you can manually check it one by one. If everything has been done prerequisite, then you can tick it and then you can say begin it. So if you haven't done, then your deployment will fail. So make sure that we have done it, select and then begin. As you can see here, it's connecting by default, right? Because this guy is well aware, the SDDC manager is well aware of the lifecycle manager. And then they know based on the architecture that this guy will be connecting to the cross-region VXLAN, right? This is what you can see is automatically populating from there. Network is predefined. So it's saying this network, this is the network ID, this is mask, it's pre-configured. And then gateway of this network is this one. And DNS and NTP already has been configured in the SDDC stack, right? So it's getting from there. If a customer, they want to change it, right? So again, you can see there's no option here to change it. So what we can do, if you come across the some use case where a customer wants to change it, then we have to go and change into the SDDC manager database and then restart the process of deployment. That's the only way we can change it. Otherwise, we don't have any option to change here. So whatever a DNS and NTP has been configured within the SDDC manager database, it is populating from there, right? So it can only populate from there. We can't manually change it. Just keep in the mind. If you need maybe in different circumstances where you want to change it, then go back to the SDDC manager. You have to connect through the SDDC manager, log into the SDDC manager CLI, and then there's multiple commands that you have to use to change these entries within the SDDC manager database. And then once you have done it, then you come back and then again start the deployment of the lifecycle manager. Okay, so now we are we are good with this, whatever the details we have, DNS and NTP. So let's go for next. Now it's asking for the name of the lifecycle manager. As said, this entry already has been done into the DNS server. IP address already has been registered. So the same IP I'm providing over here. I'm providing the password for the administrator as well as the SSH, right? So the CLI user ID, which we can connect to the lifecycle manager. So just enter the password, confirm the password for administrator as well as the SSH, and then next. That's it. Nothing else. Is very simple. Just you have to give the name and then IP address and password for administrator and then root. That's it. Rest, nothing. Click finish and sit back for a few minutes. Within the few minutes, you can see it will go and then deploy the lifecycle manager. Okay, so it's deploying it. It's done. You can see now lifecycle manager is active. Okay, now as I said, right, so the next step is that you can still, now I have my lifecycle manager deployed and up and running, but I cannot deploy the VROps or my vRealize suite of components, because the next steps prerequisite is that you must deploy the workspace one access through the lifecycle manager first before you want to deploy your individual vRealize suite of products. Okay, so we'll go and then deploy the workspace one now. Now, as you say, so as soon as you click on that, it will open the new window for the from the lifecycle manager, and it will redirect to your lifecycle manager, right? So through the SDDC manager, we click on that, and then it's open up the new window of the lifecycle manager. So this is the guy responsible for all the automation for vRealize suites, including the workspace one. So let's have the login with the local user ID, login, and then as I said, right, so we have both options, whether you want to import the certificate during the deployment of the product or you want to implement the later. Both are option available for the customer. But for the simplification of the implement of the certificate, what we are doing here, that we are importing the before deploying, so that when I'll deploy the workspace one, so I'll also deploy this certificate, custom certificate on the products. So let me import the certificate. You give the name of the certificate, browse the files, right? Once it's done, then we can go and say import it. So this is done now. Then also we need to add the license, right? So that when we deploy those products, we can choose to this license. So this will be configured for all the products. So we have added the license for complete vRealize suite of components, add it, and done, right? Password, so there will be a two password, right? So one will be the basically root account, and then there will be another account called admin account, right? So we can add it. So these two users will be used for all the products later on. So now we have certificate up and running, we have license, we have password configured. So now we can go and then start deployment of your workspace one. This is just checking, right? So that I can sync with my SDDC manager. Yes, the synchronization between the lifecycle manager and SDDC manager is okay. So let's go back to the dashboards, settings, binary mapping. So already we have confirmed that, right, so all the products already have been downloaded, right? So we have downloaded the login side vRops. As I said, right, so the workspace one earlier, the previous name was identity manager. So name is still showing identity manager here, right? So still, but now it has been rebranding as a workspace one. Let's go and start the deployment. So we go and then create a deployment, create the environment with my workspace one first. So I'm connecting now to the SDDC manager. Right, so let's go management domain. So it has done. Next, and then now you can see here I need to deploy the identity manager, which is the workspace one access. We have both the options, whether you want to have the standard deployment, means one single node deployment, or custom, which is the cluster design, multi-node design. So as soon as you choose the cluster, it will be 3 nodes deployment. Either you can go for 1 node standard or cluster 3 nodes. Just select the options, next, select the license agreement, certificate, what we imported earlier to deploy during the deployment of the workspace one. And now, so network details is by default is got from there, right? Only we have to add here is the IP addresses of the components, right? So this is the admin password. Now you can see here, so we have to now give the cluster VIP FQDN, right? So this is going to be the load balancer, right? So user will be connecting to this FQDN, and behind this FQDN, we have the 3 node clusters running, right? And then this is the IP address. So this is based on the provided details. It is going to configure the and load balancer within the NSXT, okay? So this is done, and then we'll go and then provide the 3 node details, node 1 details, node second details, and then third node details. So this way we have provided 3 node details, including the LB details. And next, run the pre-check, all passed, next, and then once you can see, it's okay, and then submit it. So it will take 10 to 15 minutes for deployment, end-to-end deployment of the multiple nodes, as well as deployment of the LB, right? So 15 to 20 minutes it will take to complete end-to-end deployment. And then once you have done, you can go back to your SDDC manager, right? And then you can see here, my workspace one is active now. So it means that I'm ready to start the deployment of now next phase, which is the individual products, VROps, login site, and then VRA. Now, how to access it? So through, again, from the SDDC manager, you can click on the workspace one and it can open up, and then so that you can start login and then integrating this with your LDAP, right? So identity management. So once you have login, how to integrate with the whether AD or LDAP. So you can log in here, and then you can click on the add directory. So when you add on directory, there are 2 options. You'll get it. One with the, you want to integrate with the Active Directory, or you want to integrate with the LDAP. So based on the whatever you have, you can integrate, and then under the users and groups, you can import all the users and groups which you want to configure a role-based access on your all those vRealize suite of components. Okay, so that was the for the deployment of the lifecycle manager as well as the workspace one. So once we have the workspace one and the lifecycle manager deployed, then next we can go and then deploy the vRealize suite of components, whether it's the VROps or you know, a login site or VRA. So I have also a demo ready for the VROps. So quickly I'll go through and you know, have the, so again, same place we are going, bring it down, and then you can select which component you want to deploy now. So I want to deploy the VROps. So just click on that. It will again open up the new window, Lifecycle Manager, connect with your local account, login, same way, the way, because now I'm trying to pre-import the certificate for my VROps so that when I'll deploy it, I'll pre-configure, you know, during the time of deployment, also I'll configure my the root CA on the VROps. You can do during the deployment or you can do later. It's up to you. So it's done. Then we can go again, fetch the data services from the SDDC manager. And now once we have done it, we can click on the, again, same way, create environments, and we can just provide the details so that it can connect to the SDDC manager, root account, and then which data center, so management clusters will be deployed, where you want to deploy this product. Then now come down here, select the, here you can see here node count, right? So you have option to have which deployment type you want to deploy. You want to have the small size node, you want to have medium size node, large, extra large, all the provided, you know, supported size of, you can choose based on your deployment, right? Node count, you want to have the 1 node deployment, you want to have the multi-node deployments, that can be done, right? So now I'm going to deploy 3 node clusters. As you can see, all the numbers are there. So whatever is your requirement, you can choose based on that. But for this demo, I'm going to have the 3 node VROps cluster. right? And this is going to be VROps 8.1.1 based on the VCF 4.1. Okay, so I have selected the VROps, number of nodes, accept the EULA. Next, select the certificate, which already we imported here, update it, validate. Now, so this is my certificate. Yeah. Now, next, same way what we saw there, that it will ask for the, again, same details. VIP as well as 3 node details. Okay, so I'm selecting here. First, I'll provide the VROps cluster, right? So just provide the VIP of your VROps. Okay, then once we have done it, then we'll go and then provide the details for the 3 nodes. So first is a master. It's not compulsory the first node is always a master, but when you first time deploy, the first node is always deploy as a master node, and later on, based on the configuration, it can fail over the services from one node to another node. Second node will be your replica, because I'm going to configure in the HA mode. So second node will be configured as a replica, and third node will be as a data nodes. So we are providing the same way, 3 node details, name, FQDN, IP addresses, details of the cluster, load balancer, and then next, same way, run the pre-check. It will go and validate everything is in place. Once it's done, next, and then say submit. So this will go, this will go, and then again, start the deployment. It will take again 25 to 30 minutes to deployment of all 3 nodes, configuration of load balancer, and then integration of the VROps with the a vCenter, vSAN, NSXT, right? Lifecycle manager, all will be done automatically during the deployment, including the certificate, because we chose to configure the certificate as well. So this is done. Go to the VROps dashboards environment. Now you can see we have my VROps is configured here, right? So go back to the SDDC manager, vRealize suites, and then you can see here it's active now. Okay, you can connect, just click on this arrow here, and then you can connect to your VROps. Once you connect, then it's ready for the further configuration, right? So depending on whatever so you want, you can go and then deploy it. So you can see here, so we have deployed with the lifecycle manager, workspace 1, and then VROps, right? That's it for this demo. Okay, it's question times. Do we have any questions? Okay, thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining. And then I'm sorry a little bit, I took a few more minutes, but hope it was very informative and then useful for you guys. Feel free to reach out to me, right? So if you want me to, if you have any specific topic which you want me to cover in upcoming webinar, I'll try to cover it. But thank you so much for taking your time, joining. And thank you so much. Have a good evening. Thanks. Yeah. Bye-bye.